Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 258 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, starting with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. What's up today, Richard?
Things are going very well. So many cards.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to spend basically the whole cast talking about new Theros cards, probably slip in some fish mail, but that's our main focus today. We have so many Theros cards to talk about. Before we get into that, though, we have another co-host in Krim. How's it going today, Krim?
Good morning, Seth. I'm pretty excited. Lots of Theros to be talked about.
Yes, we have a ton of mythics, a ton of interesting rares, and just so many Theros cards. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. Before we get into it, though, we have a sponsor today, which is Card Conduit. And have you ever tried selling your Magic the Gathering cards? I know I personally have done an insane amount of buy listing of Magic cards in my life, and it is a really time-consuming process. You have to sort everything, you have to package everything without damaging it, you gotta ship it all over the place, which that comes with its own risk. Well, if you've been struggling with buy listing, there's another option now in Card Conduit. If you got a box of cards you'd like to sell, why not just send them into Card Conduit? And Card Conduit is a new service from the folks at Card Hoarder that will sort and grade and sell your cards. Just throw them in a box, ship them off to Card Conduit, and they'll take care of it for you. And once your shipment is processed, you'll receive the proceeds minus the fee from Card Conduit. And for right now, you can get a 10% discount by going over to cardconduit.com/goldfish. Card Conduit. It's the easiest way to sell your Magic card. Anyway, thank you for Card Conduit for supporting today's show. And with our sponsorship stuff out of the way, Richard, let's talk some Theros Beyond Death cards. We got a huge list, so guide us through these sweet new cards.
All right. So last week, we basically talked about nothing. In between last week and this week, a ton of cards were previewed for us. So we're going to start off by talking about the rest of the gods, and then some cards we think we'll see play in Standard and Commander and maybe Modern and Pioneer. So we talked about Nylea last week. Let's start off with Erebos. Erebos, Bleak Hearted, 3 and a black, 5/6, indestructible. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5, Erebos isn't a creature. Whenever another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life. If you do, draw a card. 1 and a black, sacrifice another creature. Target creature gets -2/-1 until end of turn.
I like this card. It has card draw. I mean, it's. I don't know if it's better than the old one, because although you could pay 2 mana whenever to kind of because it was pretty much greed, but on this one you can sack another creature and use it as removal. I don't know. This could be pretty cool. I'm curious to see how this shapes out, but I like this card. I don't know if it's the best god, but I do like it.
I think there's a lot of competition for best god, so I don't know if I would say it's the best, but I actually think I like new Erebos better than old Erebos. The difference of being able to pay 2 life to draw a card whenever one of your creatures die, that's a really huge deal compared to having to spend 2 mana every time. You still can, spend 2 mana and sacrifice a creature and then get to draw a card. But what I'm envisioning with this is we got a lot of aristocrat synergies in Standard. We have decks that are actively sacking Cauldron Familiar every turn, for example. If you just throw Erebos into the mix of that, you're only kind of spending 1 life because of how Cauldron Familiar works with its drain ability, plus you're getting food tokens, and you're just adding draw a card into that aristocrat style loop. And that doesn't even include Commander or wherever, where you just can have this and Wrath the board and pay 10 life and draw 5 cards or whatever, turn all your Wraths into Decree of Thanes, for example.
Yep.
So I actually think that new Erebos is more powerful than old Erebos, in my opinion.
I do like it. So yeah, I agree with you there. I didn't even think about it when it comes to EDH and turning everything into a Decree of Pain. I was just so happy to see that it had a removal attached to it. So
I don't know. It's pretty good. It just adds onto everything one of our best decks currently does. cool, you have a Mayhem Devil. Now you can actually, every creature you sack is an additional card, is an additional 1 damage. It seems pretty good. And also, just like mono black shells, if you go like Cat into, what's her name? The triple black,
Ayara?
Yeah, Ayara, like Erebos, or like...
and then Gary.
Oh man, I haven't played Standard in so long. The 1-drop Vampire.
Knight of the Ebon Legion?
Knight of the Ebon Legion into
Legion.
anything, Erebos, Gary. There's just so many possibilities. So I think Mono Black is going to be a deck in Standard. I think the sacrifice decks will get even better, or at least have more options. So yeah, I think Erebos is a slam dunk for the Standard.
I also like that Mono Black with Gary and Yara has a lot of ways to instantly gain back life, so you're kind of safe-ish to spend a bunch of life drawing cards, knowing that eventually you're gonna like draw your Gary or whatever and be able to recoup it.
Tybalt has never been more relevant. So much life gain.
But have we forgotten about a casual 8-mana Villas with Erebos? Oh.
So many cards.
Somebody's going to have to do that on Commander Clash, right? Like, I mean, that's a lot of card value.
Really, though, with that Nyx Mana Rock, like the Nyxos Mana Rock, it might actually be possible to just like play a bunch of black mana symbols and hardcast Phyllis in Standard. Like, it probably won't be good, but it's something you might actually be able to do.
Gary's good enough.
Yeah,
Gary as a devotion payoff is good enough. We don't need any more.
But Villas is fun. You can draw a lot of cards.
The classic Seth. I could deal like 20 damage with Gary, or I could draw like 40 cards.
Richard, I'm trying to plant the seed into Seth's head right now, okay? So he doesn't kill us and he just draws a ton of cards.
That seed has already grown into like a full tree, so no work required.
All right, next up we have Heliod, Sun Crowned, 2 and a white, 5/5, indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. 1 and a white, another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn.
A lot of people have been talking about this with Walking Ballista.
It's infinite.
Yep. But like, is there anything else that this does though? Like, I'm like not
makes
really...
you a Johnny Pride mates everywhere, right? Like...
Yeah, I mean, you could play it in one of, like, as bad as the life gain deck usually is, it also is really popular. So it makes sense to me that they would make it. Like, I think it's one of the most popular, like, casual decks. If you ever play, like, the lower ranks on Arena, or, like casual-ish players just love the life gain archetype. So Heliod is great there. Also in Modern, I think it's even more busted. Like, just Heliod Spike Feeder is infinite life. You don't even need to, like, activate Heliod or have any, like, shenanigans. I actually think the Pioneer Walking Ballista combo is sorta clunky. I think people are focusing too much on like when things go right, how powerful it can be, and not thinking about like, oh, like
everything
this gets
else
disrupted by like any removal spell in the format, and there's a big window to like actually kill the Walking Ballista. But with Spike Feeder in some of the modern combos, I think it could be pretty powerful.
I'm super confused. Like what it's a 2-card combo at 3 and 2 mana or 3 and 4 mana, like what is so?
But you have to. Okay, so this is what people get stuck on. People get stuck on like, oh, it's like Felidar and Sahelia, but really, you need to have a Ballista with 2 counters on it.
Yeah.
So that's 4 mana.
Yeah.
Then you need Heliod, which is 2 mana, and then you need 2 mana to actually activate Heliod and target your Walking Ballista to give it lifelink, which is the clunky part. So you can't just go like turn 3 Heliod, turn 4 Walking Ballista X2, I win. You do that, and then you have to wait a whole nother turn cycle to untap and have 2 mana to give Walking Ballista lifelink.
Yep.
And that gives your opponent a lot of time to Wild Slash or Fatal Push or whatever they want to do to disrupt it.
These are all true, but I think it's still a 2-card combo. It's like, how often do you just turn 4 slam your Splinter Twin, right? Like, probably never, right? Because
you
get the removal, right? So you play on turn 5 or 6 and you set it up, but it's just a 2-card combo, right? You're not digging, you're just setting up your win.
I think that it'll probably be decent, but I think that it's going to be, the other thing about in Pioneer with it, it's kind of hard to find. Walking Ballista's kind of an awkward combo piece because you can't Coco into it. You can't Court of Calling
Well,
it.
you can always whir.
You can whir for it, but then it's still also
I'm
just
doing
like
tutor
dies.
now.
So I think it's something that will be good if you're playing a deck where both combo pieces are already good. If you can play like a white devotion deck with life gain synergies and just like have 4 ballistas and 4 Heliod's, but I don't think it's like my deck's built around this.
That just feels so.
You just play like white weenie and you throw in a ballista, right? You're like, okay, Thalia, like just random white hate bears to slow you down, and then you just combo off, right? I think it's gonna be good.
I think it'll be better in Modern. Like, you just go turn 1,
But
Noble
no one
Hire,
plays Modern anymore.
Heliod, turn 3, Spike Feeder, and all the pieces are tutorable by Cocos and Court of Callings and Eldritch
So you're
Evolutions.
telling me
but yeah,
less reason to play Modern. We have another like
Modern. What
3,
format
turn
is that?
4 combo kill.
And it's like an upside that Heliod won't be in creature form, so it can't get OCO'd.
Oh,
Or else that would fizzle
that's
your
very
combo,
relevant.
So
That's
that's actually
matter,
like
yeah.
a bonus.
That's just how good Oko is. Oh, gee, I'm so happy this is not a creature.
Yeah, yes, I'm so glad this is a useless enchantment instead of a 5/5 indestructible.
All right. Next up, we have Thassa, Deep Dwelling, 3 in a blue, 6/5, indestructible, devotion to 5 again. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. 3 and a blue, tap another target creature.
Yes, Verity Circle. I know. I know. Don't say it. I love it. But also,
This is my favorite
Yeah.
god, I think. I think this is probably, if I was just going to rank the likelihood that the god will see like tier play in standard, it might be near the bottom, but it's the one I'm most excited to play with. I love blinking stuff
At
for
the
value.
bottom.
It works with Yarok and Panharmonicon. I learned that you can blink your Master of Waves in Pioneer,
Yup.
and the elementals don't die because of how
Wait,
because
really?
of how the rules work.
yeah, because it fully resolves the ability first.
Yeah, you don't check the toughness until the whole ability resolves. So they somehow survive. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I see why it has to make the rules work, but it's still very odd to me that it works that way. Also, it's even better than I first thought, because if you read the blink ability, you can blink creatures you control, and then they come back into play under your control, which means you can build like a really janky like threaten deck or claim the firstborn and like steal creatures and then blink them and keep them forever. So I think this guy's just like super fun.
I'm so excited for this in EDH also, because like, yeah, I love playing a bunch of things that steal stuff. So like, you know, Sower of Temptation, Agent of Treachery. So it's just permanently mine. If I can blink it, of course. But yeah, I
think it's good. I
think it's,
do you think it'll see play in standard, Grim?
Yeah.
Like, do you think this is a standard playable?
yeah, I think it is. I mean, it'll we'll have to see what else gets like revealed, but there are some cool things with some sweet enter the battlefield abilities and whatnot. So I'm excited to see it and where it goes. But I think maybe as more cards get revealed, we'll see. But I think at some point it'll get played.
I'm trying to think. Like we have Cavaliers.
Right.
What else would blue have to turn? I guess like just any random 1-drop Cavalier Thassa is enough. So yeah, I think you could see play if there's like a blue shell. It depends if we actually play Cavaliers in like a fair way, or they're just fires decks.
Obviously, like Agent of Treachery is like the dream.
Yeah, Agent of Treachery is like what you want to be doing as much as you can, but that's a lot of mana we're talking about. It's 7.
I mean, I will definitely play it in standard because I love Yarok decks, and this is like perfect for Yarok too.
Yeah, this is my favorite god also.
All right, last of the returning gods. Purphoros, bronze-blooded, 4 in a red, 7/6 indestructible, devotion to 5 again. Other creatures you control have haste. 2 in a red, you may put a red creature or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
I think this might be the strongest god to me. But I love this is like my follow-up god. If it wasn't Thassa, it would probably be Purphoros. And I like this though for just playability. It's the strongest one in my opinion.
It's so expensive. What do we drop into this? Ilrog, right?
But the thing is, it gives
Villas?
other things haste on top of it. Villas.
It's a 5-drop though, right? Like you have to drop
You can't
something
put Villas. It
relevant.
has to be
You
a
can't just
red.
drop like a 5-drop. Like you just like wasted all this time, right? It has to be a big creature.
I think though, like if you play
Drakaseth?
this for 5, yeah, and then I really honestly think the best one is to go with Drakaseth is Terror of Mount Velis, one of the themed booster cards.
Yep. It has to be red,
which is
by
a
the
little
way.
frightening, but yes, it does have to be red or an artifact. But the nice thing about Perforos is you play it on 5, and then turn 6 you have 6 mana, which is enough to activate the ability twice, which means if you have 2 of the right creatures in your hand, you should be able to like 20 your opponent, or as long as they don't have like instant speed removal or whatever. Also, I'm excited to play this in Commander with Bear of the Heavens and just like troll everyone.
Yup.
So I think that'll, because you put it into play and then it sacrifices itself and then you just like heroic intervention or something and then everyone loses all their stuff and you win. So
I mean, yeah, like, and you could also, like, you could even do like Cavalier also on top of that if you wanted, just something. I don't know. There's a lot that you could play in these decks that are pretty sweet.
and it's sweet that it works with Ilharg. So if you do build like mono red sneak attack in standard, you have like Perforos, and Ilharg can be like a good backup Perforos, so you kind of have like 8 copies of that effect, and then you just play a bunch of like Dracusass and Terrors and whatever.
And
try to kill
Dragon
people.
Mage. Don't forget,
Dragon
Dragon Mage is in this format. And when you gotta hit him with the Dragon
The
Mage.
classic like 8th pick Dragon Mage on, on Arena. All right, so those are our gods. Next up, we have the Goldfish spoiler. We just released it this morning. It's Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, 1 green, a blue, so 3 CMC, 6/6, legendary creature, Elder Giant, mythic rare. When Uro enters a battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. When Uro enters a battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Escape, green, green, blue, blue, exile 5 cards. 6/6.
This card is bonkers.
It's so absurd.
This card is bonkers. Like I think the fact that you can gain 3 life and draw a card and then put a land from your hand on the battlefield and then kind of just keep doing that whenever you want, as long as you have other cards to exile, that's pretty sweet. And you can like, oh man, there's so many things you can just do with this card. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider that in standard, 3 mana ramp is already like fairly playable. Worst case, this is like a 3 mana growth spiral with upside, even if you never escape it from your graveyard. And then if you escape it, it's absurd. It's like, it's an actual Titan. It's a very much a callback to like Primeval Titan and Frost Titan, where you get to enter the battlefield and attack trigger, and it's a good one. Draw a card, gain 3 life, and put a land into play. It's just absolutely, I think this card's absolutely bonkers. I think even if your graveyard gets shut down or whatever, that's the thing I like about this card is, yes, like there is risk to having to escape it into play if there's like a ley line of the void, but worst case, like it cycles, it gains you life, like even just casting it as like a weird growth spiral, I think that's like close to a standard playable card, even discounting that it'll eventually be a 6/6 with all these triggers and stuff. I think this card's just like absolutely absurd.
I think it depends on how much self-mill there is that's playable. I think if you can't escape this card is actually really bad. Like, Growth Spiral is an okay card. The only reason we play Growth Spiral is because we're ramping into, like, better cards, right? But it's not a ramp spell, right? It's a land from your hand, which is not the same as, like, say, a Rampant Growth. So if you just do this, it's like Growth Spiral plus Healing Salve, which is, not that good. But if we have like Satyr Wayfinder effects, things like that, then this becomes absurd. So it depends how many playable self-mill cards we have. In, I guess, Sultai? I guess green can mill itself now. But I'm going to assume this goes into a Sultai deck. So,
whoa, wait,
yeah.
Did you say Sultai? Well, funny that you say that. Because you can totally stack that ETB effect and have that happen first, and then sack it to Erebos, and then draw another card.
Ooh.
Or if you have a Vivian, you get to go extra saucy and flash in a Ghalta for a lot cheaper.
I mean, worst case, wouldn't just like every Simic ramp deck play this? Like, what's the downside? If your goal is to just like ramp into Nissa, like this does what Growth Spiral does, and it gains you life, which is relevant against aggro, and then maybe sometimes you get a 6/6 that's really busted.
Yeah.
Because you'd rather have a Growth Spiral instead of a 3-drop? I don't know. Like, you have to reasonably escape this, right?
I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
Like, Growth Spiral's like the 3rd most played card in Standard or something. Like, it's like one of the tip-top most played cards
So
in the
would
format.
you remove your Growth Spirals to put this in? No, right? You would put it in conjunction with it, right? You have to cut other cards to fit this in your deck, right? What would we cut? What would we cut from Simic? If we just randomly shoved it into Simic, would you cut your Nissas? Like, probably not. Your Krasis? No.
Maybe you could shave some mana dork? No.
No, right? Like, the 1 mana is a lot. So I think we would actually have to have like a pretty reasonable chance of escaping this. Or maybe sideboard. Like, you're playing against a slower deck and, you don't really need to race to Growth Spiral, but you want to grind them out.
I don't think this is worth it in the sideboard.
But don't you think you are gonna like naturally be able to escape it just once? At least once? Like, if you're playing Simic Ramp, you got Cavalier of Thorns. That's enough to escape it all by itself. You got Growth Spirals in the graveyard. You got Quasi-Duplicates. You got Mana Dorks that are like Abrial Grazers that are chump blocking. It doesn't seem, I don't know. I don't think you're going to be able to escape it like 3 or 4 times unless you build around it. But escaping it one time, I think like you don't have to build your deck around it that much to escape it once.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess we'll see. I mean, the stats are definitely insane. Like, a 6/6 for 4 with those abilities are definitely insane. Escape's a tricky mechanic to evaluate. We'll see. Like, I think people either very much underrate it or maybe some people overrate it. And we'll have to see once we get our hands on the cards where it actually falls in the power level scale. But I have really high hopes for Euro.
Yeah. If it ever sticks on the battlefield, it is insane. Because it is a Titan. You get the trigger on enter the battlefield and on attack. So the minute it sticks, like, you've probably won the game. Next up, we have the return of Polukranos. Polukranos Unchained, 2 black and a green, 0/0. Legendary creature, Zombie Hydra. Polukranos enters the battlefield with 6 +1/+1 counters on it. It escapes with 12 +1/+1 counters. If damage would be dealt to Polukranos, while it has a +1/+1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters. 1 black and a green. Polukranos fights another target creature. Escape 4 black, green. Exile 6 other cards from your graveyard.
I don't know. Maybe the fact that escape is attached to it makes me really like this card. I think this card is pretty sweet.
It's definitely super big. Like, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it's a 6/6 for 4 essentially, and then when you escape it, it's a 12/12, which is just, that's about as big as it gets. I think I have a hard time evaluating the remove counters mechanic. It seems like that's a pretty big drawback, I guess, that if it does fight things or get into like combat with anything, it's going to shrink, but then you can always just escape it.
Yeah.
And it is worst case, it's a good removal spell. Like,
yeah,
it's going to kill any one thing on the battlefield and then probably be able to chump block at least once. And then once you escape it, it's almost like pretty close to a Wrath. You can probably escape it and then immediately fight like 2 things, 3 things the next turn and still have it stick around. So, boy, it's a weird card to evaluate, but the stats are like so big that it's hard to imagine it's not at least somewhat good.
Does it survive? It does, right? It survives the combat with a questing beast?
No, right?
But if damage would be dealt to it while it has 1/1 counter on it, prevent that damage.
But questing beast prevents damage prevention.
Oh, right.
So you would just lose counters.
I forgot. Questing
you get
beast
like
does
double
that.
damage.
Hold on, yeah, never mind. Questing beast still has more text every day. All right, cool.
Oh, questing beast just like kills
it like doubly kills
it?
this thing, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah, it is kind of like as a furnace of wrath against questing beasts in specific. Yeah,
but there are cards in older formats that what's the card where if you would be dealt damage with +1/+1 counter, like prevent that damage or something. Like there are ways to make Polukranos immortal with older cards. But
not against questing beasts.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You guys are seeing it as a 12/12. It's gonna be a 4-mana 6/6 most of the time with like really weird drawback. Like it's like Ugin's Conjurant or whatever. And I think best case scenario is you play this on a board of weenies and then you like start picking off, creatures. But it's still 3 mana per activation. That's 7 mana for the first creature to remove. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it powers up your Great Henge some more. I don't know. I think it could be good, but it can also be terrible. So I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, if you Great Henge, you get an extra counter too.
Ooh.
Yeah, if you escape it, it could be a 13-13.
What about Simic Ascendancy? That works, right? Is this like the cheat code to finally win with Simic Ascendancy?
Dude, that might actually be with Ugin's Conjurant also.
Yeah.
Well, if I know what I'm doing.
You can also cheat by Vivian is a one-way fight, right? There are a bunch of cards that they're fight, but not really.
It just deals the damage.
Yeah. So, you can effectively use all of your power from Pelucanos without shrinking Pelucanos into a 1/1 or something.
There's like so many broken green 4-drops right now. Like Questing Beast and Wicked Wolf and Vivian, Ceratops. I think I'm even forgetting one, but that's my question with a lot of these cards is like, yeah, they seem like they could be good, but are they better than what we already have in the format? Or do they end up getting like left on the sidelines because even though they're powerful, just because they're like not quite as powerful as Questing Beast or Ceratops or whatever.
Yeah. And also remember gods are in this format. So if you have a 6/6 and they have a 5/5 indestructible, you get like one block in before you're a 1/1, right? Like,
yeah, you probably don't want to fight those.
Like you can't really do much, right? So yeah, 4-mana 6/6s are not what they used to be. Next up, we have the Ox of Agonas, 3 red, 4/2 creature Ox. It's a mythic rare. When Ox of Agonas enters the battlefield, discard your hand, draw 3 cards. Escape red, exile 8 other cards from your graveyard. Ox of Agonas escapes with a +1/+1 counter on it.
I like this card, but is it too much to ask to give it haste?
I assumed it would have haste.
Yeah.
Wait, why does it need haste?
That it doesn't
Does
have
Bending
haste.
Reveler have haste? Like, do we need more value on our card?
But the thing is, just by the way things Magic's gone with creatures, I'm expecting keyword soup on everything, right? So I guess I've had it too good, or maybe, yeah, like I've been spoiled. Ox of Agonas or whatever. I just for some odd reason just thought it had haste the whole time, but
is this actually good?
I like it. I mean, I don't know if I like the escape part. The first part is a little, it's a little bit of a pickle, but like after that, escaping and 8 other cards is a lot though. It is a lot of other cards.
But good thing you discarded your hand on the way in, right?
Oh yes. Hey, in a matchup maybe where all my removal's dead.
Yeah. And I guess like it does kind of work in Arclight Phoenix style shells, maybe there's a shell there that could take advantage of it in standard and have it be pretty good, or like Crackling Drake, you get to escape all the cards into exile, but they still pump your Drake or whatever. I think for me, the place this is almost certainly going to see play is Modern Dredge. This I think is just like absolutely absurd in Modern Dredge because you get 8 cards in your graveyard really quickly, and then this is 2 mana Dredge like 15 or something because you just you discard your hand, which is an upside, and then you get to dredge 3 times. So I would be shocked if this wasn't part of Modern Dredge at a minimum.
I think this is another reason to not play Modern anymore. I think this is going to be really good in the older formats. Like it is draw 18, right? With Dredge, right? You dredge 6 3 times with this. Like you're basically dead. Like they're going to hit all your creep and chills and whatever, right? Like it's basically their whole deck. So, and it comes for free in the graveyard and you get to discard all the dead cards in your hand. So I think this is like an auto include. Depends. I know nothing about Dredge. Depends if they can cut stuff to fit this in, but I feel like you can.
They're gonna make room for this. This card is very good in Dredge.
Dredge players seem excited about it, so I think
it's basically Hogak. You kill it, they escape again for 2. Comes back as a 5/3.
It is kind of a pretty weak creature. Like a 4/2 for 5.
It's a 5/3.
Even a 5/3. Dies to bolt.
Could have had haste. Just saying.
Could have dealt 20 on ETB. Like why not?
You know what? At this point, sure.
Imagine if they had Panharmonicon on Dredge. Maybe that's the direction to go. Then you get to literally dredge your entire deck because you double.
You just mill yourself. You're like, oops.
Panharmonicon in Dredge. Oh,
I'm gonna do it.
Oh, wait.
Don't laugh at me.
No, wait. No, this doesn't work the way I want it to.
All right, next up we have Knoros, Hound of Athreos. 1 white and a black. 3/3 legendary creature, Hound. Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink. Creature cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards.
Graf Doggo's Cage is adorable. I love this card.
They're like,
I mean,
questing beast, I don't think you have enough keywords. Let me put 2 more heads on you.
Yes. Let's make mini questing beast. I think this card is very fun. I love the Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink, and on top of that, creature cards and graveyards can't enter the battlefield. And then it also, they can't cast spells. I just like this card a lot. Maybe because it's a doggo.
I'm not sure where I come down on this card. This is one of the cards I think that suffers most from being legendary. I would be a lot more excited about playing it in standard if it wasn't legendary. Like, the clunkiness of it is a concern, although it does seem like it lines up well with where the metagame might be. It beats Cauldron Familiar decks, which... kind of funny, the age-old dogs beating cats trope in Magic. So we have that. It also is very good against Escape, and it is a fine creature. I just wonder, like, how many of these can you play? Can you just be like, I'm going to play 4 of these and hope that it works out? Or is it something that you have to play... I don't know. Your hate cards you often want in like high numbers, so you make sure you have them in the matchup where you need them, but then you kind of get punished maybe by playing 4 of these because it's legendary and have like a bunch of dead draws in
This
your
is like
hands.
Thalia. It is so good that you're willing to have the dead card, right? If your opponent is on any graveyard deck, like they're
Do you
pretty
remember that
shut
one
down.
meme card? That meme card, Underworld Breach? I don't know. That one might be good. It stops that.
But I actually don't like this card. I think it's too good.
Cage?
I think there's no downside. Like say your opponent does not play graveyard cards. Like, what is the downside? That it's legendary? Because you have a 3/3 Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink, right?
You
like, you don't even
life.
need any of the other text, right? So you just hose graveyard decks for no reason. Like, they should have made this weaker, like a 2/2 or
no,
a 1/3, or I don't know, man. It's like so strong, you don't even need any of its abilities.
They should have made it a 4/4.
I don't know if a 3/3 with a bunch of abilities is yeah, it's whatever. We're playing in 2020 standard, Richard.
Yeah.
This isn't like 2015 standard where a 3/3 for 3
But it
was-
has Menace and Lifelink.
Yeah,
I don't know how any aggro decks can get anything done
Menace.
in this standard. Like, everything has Lifelink now.
Nice try,
Everything
Ryan.
gains you like 3 life, right? Our burn spell should have like 8 damage attached to them at this point.
that is true.
Just-
It is a rough time for aggro.
Everything is just 1 mana Thunderous Wrath. Instant speed. Just like, sure, no miracle required. Just 5 damage, 5 damage, 5 damage.
Do you think this will show up in older formats? Like,
Yeah.
Grafdigger's Cage is a card that people play. You can like vial it into play in Death and Taxes or something. Like, it probably has some potential in older formats, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if like Burn needed to get dunked on some more, but I guess like, why not, right? Like, sure. Everybody dunks on Burn now.
Also, like Dog Tribal EDH. If you go like black white dogs.
What color
But
are all
I
the
feel like you
dogs
gotta
in?
have green. It's gotta be Abzan, so you could have a Mowu. And,
Oh,
just
yeah.
That's true.
And then that way you could also have with a 1 mana 1/3 that has Defender. You could sack it to give something protection. Yeah, or not protection, indestructible.
Resolute.
You gotta keep
Watchdogs
keep your
or
hound
whatever.
alive.
Yep.
All right. Haktos, the Unscarred. Red, white, 6/1. Legendary creature, human warrior. Haktos, the Unscarred, attacks each combat if able. As Haktos enters the battlefield, choose 2, 3, or 4 at random. Haktos has protection from each converted mana cost other than the chosen number.
The first Hearthstone card in Magic. Yes.
So
I'm
it basically has a protection from every CMC except one of 3, 2, 3, or 4, which you roll when it enters the battlefield. It's Achilles, heel, which sometimes turns into an elbow or knee or something, but
I have no idea how to evaluate this card. If I think about like the upside, it seems like one of the scariest cards in standard. But then I think about the downside, I'm like, oh, but like if I roll the wrong thing, this is just gonna get like pinged by a Mayhem Devil after I spend 4 mana on it, and I gotta play like double white and double red, which is like the worst colors. So do I really want to like even try to cast this? What do you like? Oh man, the ceiling is like a true name nemesis that kills people in 3 turns, but then the floor it just like is 4 mana, dies to something really weak and incidental.
Block. I mean, I don't know. Like, I like the card. I think it's fun, but I have no clue how good this is either because of the RNG part of it, right? The die roll, but it could be pretty busted too. I don't know. This is a tough one. I can't get a read on this card. It's perfectly like awesome and terrible at the same time.
I think it's really good if there's a real Boros deck, right? Because you can't just, this is not like a card you slam into any deck. You need to have a functioning Boros deck.
Not with that mana cost.
And it has to be good enough to be a good deck without this card, and then this card would just be like a good curve topper. Because I think if you're playing an aggro deck, your opponent is not going to have the luxury of holding like a 2, 3, and 4 CMC card to deal with this, right? And you also have spells, like if they have like only a 3 CMC blocker, you can remove it or whatever. So I feel like it's pretty good, but you need a good Boros deck. I don't know if we have a good Boros deck. Like a Boros aggro deck, not like some weird big red deck, right? Like something that will end the game.
There is a reason now to run a shock maybe over Bone Crusher Giants, because Stomp is a possible thing that you can't target this with.
Well, you can never target this.
Yeah, but you can never target it with shock.
So shock is useless.
Yeah.
You got to play the shock to kill something else to hold your Bone Crusher Giant for this.
Yeah.
You know that you're going to play this, and your opponent's going to have like 1 card in hand, and it's going to be like Murderous Rider, and you're going to roll 3 every time. Like, I know that's what's going to happen with me, and then I know it's going to go the other way when my opponent plays it. I'm going to have the Bone Crusher, and they're going to roll like 4 or whatever, and then I just lose. So, what do you think about this, like, infusion of, as Krim said, like Hearthstone effects in the Magic?
The H word, you can't say that.
Are they trying to add more variance to the game since they took so much away with London Mulligans?
I think it's I'm happy for it. I mean, I think I'm happy for it though, because it's going to be more fun to watch. It's going to be there's going to be a lot more entertaining games, but of course, I'm sure there are people out there that are also going to despise this because of the randomness of it, right? So, I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of it. And we've had other kind of RNG like cards anyways. So this isn't like the first one actually, but I think it's pretty cool.
I don't like it. I mean, I like RNG, like say Coco. Actually, I don't know. Like, so the reason I don't like this is like this card becomes unbeatable to absolute garbage depending on what you roll and your opponent's hand, which is too big of a range, right? Like I want the RNG range to be smaller, right? But I guess Coco has the same problem where you can hit like 2 bombs or you can hit nothing. I don't know. Like, have you ever seen like those Hearthstone videos of like Ragnaros or whatever, and there's like 20 things on board and he hits the wrong one and you're like, why? Like, what are the odds? Like,
I've never had that happen.
Stuff like that. I don't know how I feel about that as a Magic player, right? Like, I feel like the game is so random already, and I'm trying everything in my power to make it not random. So I will like actively avoid these cards. So I don't know.
Do you think it would be too good if you could just choose one of those?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it'd be too good. Would it be too good?
What? You just enter the battlefield, choose 3 or 4?
It requires you to know your opponent's deck and to like figure out what they have in their hand, right?
Sure, but I think like the fact that you can just say like, all right, I'm going to just pick whatever number, then I don't know. I feel like that's a little ridiculous. Because let's say that if the best removal like sits in around on 2 mana, you blank a lot of cards with that. Yeah. Like, not a lot of decks have a crazy curve of removal, right? Because then it's just like, well, control decks are the only way that this, like, control decks are the only thing that's going to beat this.
Well, you kill him before Haktos gets online, right? Like, I think that's the way you're supposed to beat Haktos, right? He hits you in the face for 6 while he's tapped down. You kill him, right? You questing beast him or Pelucrados him.
Did we just talk about all the cards that are gaining 30 life a turn? Like, I don't know how you expect anyone to die before this.
Because it doesn't have haste. It doesn't have trample. It doesn't, I guess you can't block, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But it does not have haste. It does not have haste.
Oh, I'm just also imagining a timeline where somebody Ember cleaves this, and then we're really getting into a good spot.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, Embercleave is that's scary.
Oh,
We
actually, hold on. It has protection from it, right?
Oh yeah, you can't. I guess that's true.
Never mind.
Oh, you
Okay.
can't even target this thing.
Yeah, I thought it was just from your opponent's stuff, but that's right. It's just protection. So, lol. Never mind.
I mean, you can just wrath this thing, right? Like this is not like unkillable. You can just
so
wrath
once
it.
again, what is an aggro deck gonna do? Play a wrath?
Nothing. Kill them before they play their 4-man
Oh my gosh.
6/1 that attacks super slow.
It's simple. We kill the Batman. Okay, cool. Got it.
We just got right this minute a new mythic. Do you guys want to hear what the new mythic
All
is?
right.
Live reaction.
Live reaction.
All right. This is a blue mythic. It's a saga. It's Kiora Bess the Sea God. Lore counter, it's 7 mana, 2 blue and 5. Lore counter number 1, make a 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof. Number 2, tap all non-land permanents target opponents control. They don't untap during their next untap step. Lore counter number 3, gain control of target permanent and opponent controls. Untap it.
It's 7 mana. It gives me
Yep.
It blocks Carnage Tyrant.
It does. Crim's still trying to beat Carnage Tyrant 3 months after rotation.
That's a never-ending fight, by the way.
Traumatized you. It's traumatized Crim so badly. He's still looking for answers.
And it taps all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untaps. I think this card is pretty sweet. And then sure, why not 3rd chapter, gain control of target permanent opponent controls? Why the heck not? I like it. It's a little costly, but maybe with like some way to like ramp it out with like, I don't know, some potential Nykthos like artifact or something. That you could do a lot with this.
Hey, even just the 8/8 hexproof for 7, that's like not a bad deal. Like that's a big, hard to interact with creature.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't block Michael Ceratops, aka the Shifting Ceratops, but like, like this does work. I like this card, and I also like the art.
Ooh, and then you can, what you do with this is you don't cast it in Pioneer, you just like get it in the graveyard and loop it with Starfield of Nyx or something, or reanimate it. That would be fun.
I mean, yeah. I mean, can mono blue work in Pioneer outside of like little blue critters flying around?
Mono Blue Devotion is like a kind of a real deck, but it's kind of like aggressive
it's
for the most
yeah,
part. It's kind of like the little creatures flying around Blue Devotion for the most part.
Yeah.
There's no deck called Big
don't know.
Blue. That would be that would just be control.
Yeah, big blue.
Big Blue. What do you think, Richard? How good is this card?
I don't know. It's like a 7-mana finisher. Is that good enough? It can be countered? Because it's
7
basically
mana,
like an
8/8.
8/8 unblockable, unkillable, right? Because you get to tap all their stuff after, so you get to swing in at least once.
But wait, hold on.
Or
You can
twice, I
counter
guess.
What about Verity Circle?
this.
Gotta draw those cards.
But they can like raise the alarm and chump block this thing. I don't know. I think it's gonna be okay.
Verity Circle.
I think it's gonna be okay. Wouldn't you rather just play Agent of Treachery? Like, I don't know. It's like, do you care about this 8/8
Yeah.
Kraken? Like,
Yeah, but Agent of Treachery doesn't tap all the non-land permanents.
do you need to? They don't have. You just stole their like one non-land permanent.
But you have an 8/8 hex-proof Kraken.
I mean, the upside is you can just scream "Release the Kraken" every time you cast this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I more so am thinking about the value, the emotional value of this card. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
Remember, this taps a Planeswalker too.
Wait,
so
what
the
does
Planeswalker doesn't?
what does Thassa blank? Is it a blink? Is it a permanent or a creature?
Only
creature.
creatures,
It is a
unfortunately.
creature.
So you probably do not want to use it with your Kraken.
Well, you can.
I mean, technically, it is a legal target, and your opponent can't fizzle it with removal because of hexproof. So
Got him.
What?
We got him.
All right. Next card: Ashi Ox Eraser. 2 blue enchantment. Flash. When Ashi Ox Eraser enters the battlefield, exile target spell. Your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. When Ashi Ox Eraser leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to its owner's hand.
There's only one card I'm trying to counter with this, and not counter, remove off the stack. There are many cards that you're going to do this on, but I'm thinking of Shifting Ceratops. That card is so annoying.
If
And
only
on
we
top
had Veil of Summer to stop all of this.
Oh no. This gets around Veil of Summer.
No, Veil of Summer
doesn't
gives you
counter.
hexproof, right?
But hold on, but this can exile it off the stack, yeah.
Hexproof hexproof and can't be countered,
Yeah.
right? So I think it would still.
You can't
definitely-
exile the spell because your spell is hexproof, no? Or does it not?
No,
No,
the only permanents get. I have definitely gotten blown out with spell quellers in hand in modern.
Yeah.
Having Veil of Summers in hand against spell quellers in modern, and it still exiles it.
Although this now just makes so. Guess what? Green just packs a ton of Brontodons.
That's my concern with this card is because of Fires of Invention, most decks are already like on top of fighting enchantments. You're seeing main deck Brontodons. You're seeing like a decent amount of sideboard cards to deal with it. So I think it goes down a little bit in value there. You're the control mage, Krim. Like, is this something even at 4 mana you would consider main decking? Or is this like, okay, I'm playing like a mostly blue control deck that can't beat Ceratops. This is my like sideboard way to try to deal with it.
I would main deck a few copies, yeah. It is still 4 mana, and like you had mentioned, like it's not hard to deal. Like it's not hard to deal with. You can blow it up in numerous ways. You can bounce it with like 3 fairy or something like that. And I mean, even if they bounce it and blow it up, the good news is that it doesn't go to the field. It goes back to their hand. So that's why I think I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, worst case, a tempo play compared to like Ixalan's Binding or something,
Right.
which is like the comparison that just puts it right back into play. Like, yeah, they have to spend their mana to recast it again.
The worst part
Correct.
is playing with 3 fairy, right? You erasure something, you 3 fairy your own erasure, then you erasure again. I think the fact that it doesn't cast it is good,
It
right?
doesn't
Like,
cast it, but the thing is, because it doesn't cast it, 3 fairy does. It's not the spell queller templating.
Yeah, so it still goes back to their hand,
yeah,
so
that's
they
fine.
can cast it.
No,
again.
but you basically get to take them off like for 2 turns, right? And you get to
Right,
draw a card, and they've accomplished nothing.
Yeah,
They have to use their mana again, right?
Like you have 3 fairy the turn before this, then you cast it, they end their turn, they pretty much end their turn, then you get to take it your turn again and then bounce it back.
You bounce,
It's
you
like, well,
draw,
feel
and
free.
then you blank their next cast of it again. And since you're
Yep.
playing a dirty control deck, you probably won now because you've delayed the game long enough with just 2 cards.
And they won't be able to cast any other copies of it. So that they'll just like, if they're like sitting on a ton of, I don't know, shifting Ceratops, well, enjoy it because you're not playing any of them.
What? So question 2, Krim. Let's say Ceratops was not a card. Would you play this anyway? Like, is this narrowly targeted at Ceratops, or is it a good enough card, just in a more broad sense that you would still play in a control deck?
I mean, we're assuming, let's take out the uncounterable cards like Chandra and Ceratops, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would still play a few copies. I think it's still,
Okay.
it's still very good. I mean,
Like you
For-
counter
it
a
is 4
fires
mana.
and like they're out of fires for the rest of the game until
Yup.
they sideboard into
Yeah, if
removal
you
for
can,
it,
like,
right?
Get there to
it's like,
get there to fairy and their fires, then they're
Yeah.
in real trouble.
that's just why I love it so much, just because the fact that it's a blue Ixalan's Binding. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, that is very good. I don't know. I'm surprised this isn't in white, but okay. Yeah, sure.
And, like, we haven't even talked about it, but it adds 2 blue mana symbols to the battlefield if
Yep.
devotion is something you're interested in. It's an enchantment. We have a lot of enchantment synergies, things that, like, draw cards and constellation, so it triggers a bunch of synergies there as well. So I think that increases its value, too, that it works well with a lot of the themes of Theros Beyond Death.
You can be extra cute, you know, have a 3 fairy plus, and then go dance of the manse. Just make this a 4/4 and exile a spell on its way out before they die.
All right. Next up, we have Tectonic Giant, 2 red, 3/4 Elemental Giant. When Tectonic Giant attacks or becomes a target of a spell an opponent controls, choose one. Tectonic Giant deals 3 damage to each opponent. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them. Until end of next turn, you may play that card.
All right, Richard, what do you think about this card?
I think this card is insane. And we were debating whether it was standard playable at the beginning of the podcast. It's a 4 mana 3/4 that either, so if they remove it, you get to dome them or draw a card. And anytime it attacks, you get the same trigger. So it can attack for 6 every turn, or it can attack for 3 and draw a card. How can this not be standard playable? Are our creatures that crazy?
I think if that first ability, 3 damage to each opponent, could also be redirected to maybe like a planeswalker, right? Does that, like that I feel like that would then make it a lot more interesting.
It's also a target of a spell. So if you bounce it with, say, Teferi, you don't
Ability.
get a trigger. Yeah.
Correct. That's another thing. And the fact that it's only a spell, and exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them until end of your next turn. You may play that card. I mean, okay. Obviously, if I'm going to have to like double shock this, it's going to be a pain, right? Like, oh my lord. But like, but with how many things there are, like just like I don't know, even an Ether Gust or who knows, whatever else. Like this, like the 4-drop slot. I mean, maybe in mono red. No, mono red. I'd rather just play Torbjorn, right? Or Toblerone or whatever's.
Yeah, and you have Frenzy at 4.
Yeah, Frenzy.
Probably.
Like there's just better things at 4. And yeah, like the fact that first ability that can't be redirected elsewhere. I don't know.
I think, for me, I think the problem is I just don't think it's big enough. Like, we've been talking about 6 6s for 4 and 6 6s for 3, and then you play this for 4, and like, sure, if you get to attack every turn, it hits for 6, but it gets blanked by so many things in the format, and then you don't even have to kill it. Like, if you have any reasonably sized creature, you're like, yeah, sure, it's like, nice Tectonic Giant. Like, I think the exception for me is, it is an elemental. Elementals are like kind of close to being standard playable and haven't really gotten much support since M20, so maybe elementals. Also a giant, which we keep seeing more the second week of spoiler season with like elder giants coming out now and different giants. Maybe like giant tribal synergies will be a thing, but I don't think it's honestly good enough that I would just like play this in a normal deck. I think you got better options if you're Gruul, and I think you got better options if you're mono red, so I don't know where like it actually fits, even though it does feel like it should be powerful.
That is
like
so sad. It feels like it could be, what was that card? Reaper of the Wild from what set was that?
Dragon's Maze?
I don't know what set it was from, but it was the 4-mana of 4/5, and everyone was raving about it. And then like I saw 0 play, and we're like, how? It was such like a good statted body.
Yeah, like it is a cool card, but there's just the options you have are way better, in my opinion. Like maybe you could sideboard this, right? Out of like Gruul if you need card draw.
I mean, it is nice that if your opponent kills it, you get something out of it. Kind of in the same way like Niv Mizzet is nice. Like, sure, maybe your opponent Murderous Riders it. Worst case, you draw a card, you get a damage out of it. Tectonic Edge is similar to that. Like, if your opponent kills it, at least it's kind of replacing itself with a card. So that is an upside. It gets around the Dies to Doomblade problem, but cards are just so creatures specifically are just like so strong right now. I'm not sure this measures up, honestly.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously it doesn't match up against green creatures, but I think against everything else, it's fine. Plus, if you have like Toblerone on the battlefield, like this thing is great, right?
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, now we're talking that you played 2 4-drops.
Well, I mean, you can't. You have to have the supporting cast around this, right? But that is Red's answer to big green creatures, Toblerone, right? So
yeah, you can play like Ramp Burn. Play your turn one Abriel
we'll play
Razor.
big red.
Get your 4-drops out a little quicker.
You just curve into giant, into Scargan or something. I don't know. I'm sure we can make it work.
What about just giants? Like, we got Bone Crusher Giant. We have this red giant. We
Whoa.
have
the giant payoff.
Realm Cloak
You
Giant.
go Boros. Yeah, you go Boros
like
Giants.
Boros Giants.
Then you can play the Hearthstone card. It's not a giant, but like, woo!
Could even go like Naya, and then you get a Beanstalk Giant out of the deal for some more ramping. Like, maybe I'm going to try giants.
I asked again, what is the payoff?
One would say that sounds like...
Is there a lord or something? Like, what do we even do with giants?
I think it's like Realm Cloak. Being a one-sided Wrath is probably as good as it gets at the moment.
Does not seem worth it to play.
A giant deck, that seems like there's going to be a bunch of big synergies, because...
On that note,
all right.
Let's answer some fish mail.
Wait. One more cycle. We want to talk about the intervention cycle. So we have the green one, Nylea's intervention. So green X, choose one, search up to X land cards, reveal them, put them in your hand, shuffle, or deals X damage to each creature with flying. The black one is black and an X, -X to a creature. You gain X life or exile up to 2 X cards from graveyards. The red one is also red and an X. Create an X1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, or deals twice X damage to a creature or planeswalker. And I think those are the ones we have so far.
I like them all pretty much. They all can do something, right? I mean, the Red one can
They can all do 2 somethings, actually.
Yeah, 2 somethings, right? Which is why I like them. They're all kind of versatile. And they can be a removal spell. They can, the black one is able to get rid of some indestructible gods. While it can also be removal that just gains you life because you need the health. And then you can also exile cards from graveyards when there's so many things with escape. The red one gives you a threat to just kill your opponent when you, it's not a lie here. It's the weakest, I think, of the interventions so far, the red one, but I think it's still, usable. And, you use it as removal. I don't hate that. And the green one is just great in EDH, right? I think we all agreed on that.
Yeah,
tutoring non-basics is super, super. But I think I think Jim Davis did the spoiler article and said it was like Sylvan Scrying mixed with Mind Spring, and it basically is. You just get to tutor all your best lands into your hand and generate so much card advantage. I think it's probably the worst for standard, honestly.
Yeah.
We don't really have very many good utility lands to tutor up at the moment. I guess you can get castles or something, but they're not super exciting tutor targets. So probably worse for standard, best for commander. I'm pretty meh on the red one. It's okay, but it's not really exciting. I think both the red one and the black one, to me, they're good in the way that charms are good. I think when I read any of the individual abilities, I'm kind of I don't really like it for its mana cost. But maybe the flexibility makes up for that. The fact that it can be removal or graveyard hate. It can be removal for creature or planeswalker in the case of the red one, or a finisher if you happen to have a clear battlefield and a bunch of mana to make a big token. So maybe the flexibility makes up for it, but I don't think the rate on any of them are especially exciting to me.
Yeah, I think red and green are bad for standard. Black has, could be playable. As removal, it's not horrendous. And as a late game, you just top deck this thing and you just give something -8/-8 for fun and gain 8 life is not bad. And you can exile.
Nice try, aggro.
Yeah, you can exile a cat or something. I think black has a shot of being played, but I don't think the other two are good enough.
I think there are cards that also go up in value in best of one. We've seen this before with similar mechanics. The black one, sure, maybe black and X for -X is kind of middling rate-wise, but it also means you have graveyard hate in your deck. So if you run into a really focused escape deck, for example, sure, your removal spell, maybe it's not as efficient as you like, but the fact that you don't just straight up lose to some graveyard deck might make up for it in best of one.
I think that's just why it's good in general, right? Because you can also do the same in best of 3. Sometimes, let's just say this storm deck or whatever, the red enchantment deck, game 1, that could just be an auto loss, but you actually have something to fight against them by eating their graveyard. I don't know. I like that you can just, black is the most versatile one, I think, right now.
I think I would say that black is the best, for standard. I think black is the best of the bunch that we've seen. I would say too. Yeah.
All right. So that's all the spoilers for this week. You can check them out at mtgpreviews.com. So yeah, let's move on to fish mail. So if you have questions, send them to @mtggoldfish with the hashtag #MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Cash DPT7 made my first MCQ next weekend. Any advice? Login when the window opens versus wait. Any other pointers?
MCQ going to your first MCQ or
it's the arena one from
MCQW. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't fall asleep while sideboarding like I did.
That's good advice.
Highly recommend you be awake for it.
I've never actually played one.
I actually did. The first one, I played them all, but the first one I did fall asleep. I brought in a ton of cards and just forgot to sideboard some out, and then woke up sometime where it forced me to keep my hand. And
Did you end up winning?
No, I did not. I did not win that one.
I just hope I get matched up with all the other limited players. I haven't played standard in a month, and I played best of one when I played. I'm just I guess I gotta play standard now. So yeah, I'm gonna try to farm some gems. I think you get 200 gems per win, because you got to go 10-1 to qualify. It's impossible.
Yeah. Now that it's all in one day, though, I think that's pretty nice. You don't have to do the thing where wait and then resubmit your deck list day 2 and then do all these things like add each other and then, do that stuff. Instead, now it's just like get it all done day 1. I do like that.
Next question, Rakdos77. Hey Seth, did you watch the Bills game this weekend? It was super close and very intense. Were you on the edge of your seat too?
Yeah, I did watch the Bills game. I was on the end of my seat. They sort of proved that they're the same old Bills, I think, despite all the optimism. We got to see maybe the least logical lateral I've ever seen anyone throw in a football game. It was entertaining. I will give it that. It wasn't victorious by any stretch, but I was entertained all Saturday afternoon.
Oh, it was my fault, Seth. I watched like the first 3 quarters, and I'm like, oh, the Bills got this in the bag.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like,
let me go do some errands. Come back 2 minutes later. I'm like, what happened?
I was actually gonna text Seth and be like, yo, good job. I think you got it. And then I look back and then they started losing.
Never underestimate the Bills' ability to lose a very winnable game.
This was your year, Seth. The Patriots lost. It was gonna be the year.
Yeah, I know. Next year will be our year.
Next year.
That's the official model of Bills fans. Yeah, for
we're
the
on
last
a
25 years.
rebuilding decade. Yeah.
All right, last question. 11 Vicious, bold prediction. A Mox in the next Commander set. Prismatic Mox, 0 cost, taps for any of your Commander's colors, doesn't untap at the next untap step, pay 1 to untap, sacrifice Mox to put your Commander onto the battlefield from anywhere.
Oh, that would be insane if it does all of this.
Wait, what?
I could see the Mox. I don't know about
end your
the
turn.
like.
But wait, what? You just sack this and cast your Commander for free?
That seems very broken. You just play it and like have whatever the Dragon on turn 1 or whatever.
Yeah,
that does not seem ideal. I think I could see a Mox though. Wizards is going to want to sell that that draft set that they're doing for Commander the end of next year, and I could definitely see Arcane Signet Mox of some kind being one of the like mythics in that set. I don't think it'll put your Commander.
What's the condition though? So this one is like you have to pay to untap it. Do you think that would be the condition?
I mean, couldn't you just have it be like a Mox? I mean, you have like Mox Diamond.
Wait, well, like which Mox are we talking about? Like Mox Diamond or like real Moxen?
Just like tap to add a mana of any of your Commander's colors.
But at 0?
Identity. Yeah.
Just like a straight up Mox? No way.
Yeah.
No.
Too good?
What? When you just play this in Vintage and stuff? I guess you don't have a Commander.
Well, you don't have a Commander though.
But it's just straight up better than like the original Moxen? Like no way.
Maybe that's too good. I guess what drawback could you put on that would make it still be powerful?
I think your Commander has to be on the battlefield. So if you've already cast your Commander, you can play the Mox. but don't we have that? Wait, what is the
Mox Amber?
I mean, we have Mox Amber, which is essentially that. It is that. Actually,
you can't make it better than all of the original Moxen though. Like there's no way that's gonna happen.
What about 1 mana? 1 mana. Tap for a mana any color of your. You got Soul Ring. That taps for 2 generic mana. You got Signet.
But it's just it's just literally a 1 mana rock.
That's not really exciting though. That's just like better Arcane Signet.
Yeah. Which then now you have 3 auto includes when you start building your deck.
Maybe like you have to discard a card, do something actually that's like
then it becomes
Mox Diamond.
Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond.
Like a Chrome.
Yeah, like Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond, like some downside like that maybe to make it a little more fair.
Yeah.
Then it's like Mox Reanimate something huge. I win. Like maybe that's an upside.
I would want. I mean, maybe like it'd be pretty cool. Like if. They could be all mythic, I guess, but like what I'm about to say is probably pretty bonkers, but every Mox adds a specific color and then does something equal to their color pie. Like black can like remove a creature. But it costs mana. It'll be like 2 mana, right? Like it'll be like a Doomblade that also like
a repeatable Doomblade, no problem.
No. When it comes into play, you can kill a creature.
Like artifact with a enter the battlefield trigger, essentially.
Yeah, and then it also adds a mana, or maybe it like adds mana to the color. I don't know, the creature you destroyed or something like that.
Oh, that could be fun,
right?
I could get behind that.
And then,
that wouldn't really be a Mox, but I think that could be a cool cycle.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be a Mox. Whites would probably just enter the battlefield and gain you 2 life or something like that.
All right, that's all the fish mail we have time for this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 258 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Gribb, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. You can get 10% off over at cardconduit.com/goldfish. So, thank you to them. And we will be back next week. We should have the full Theros Beyond Death spoiler. So, we'll talk about that and whatever else happens in the world of Magic. So, until next week, this is the crew signing out.